Well, guys, this is a video I wanted to do for a long time, and that is talking about all the NFL franchises that I've done for as long as I can remember. I might not even remember all of them off the top of my head going first, but I wrote them all down over the last few months, and I wanted to do this video, as not only do I want to talk about my Madden franchises, I also wanted to show a new system I made up a few months ago and finally showed off to everyone, and that is my own legacy score system. You know, in the current Madden games, when you're the coach or the owner or the player, you have a legacy score, just like all the other players, coaches, and owners do, where depending on how you do, you get a legacy score, and you compare it to like other Hall of Famers and such like that. I always thought that was a cool system, but I never understood how it worked. So, a few months ago, I made my own version to do when running a franchise. So, I figured I'd show that before we get into the video. So, this is my own legacy score system. So, here is my legacy score system that I've thought about, as would be up to maybe add some more stuff over time, but this is what I've done. So, first off on the list is, if you win a regular season game, you get 100 points. So at most you can get 1,700 points, or 1,600 if you play an older man. You get no points if you lose, and if you tie, you get 50 points, since a tie is considered half a win and half a loss. So 100 for each regular season win. You get 200 points if you have a winning season. A season where you're over 500. Not no 8 or 8. You have to have a winning record and such like that. If you make the playoffs, you get 500 points. Now, if you win the division, though, you get an extra 750. If you get the number 1 seed, you get 1,000 points. I was actually considering maybe adding a first round bye point system, because I remember from 1990 to 2019, there were 2 teams with a bye, but I figured that's going to kind of bias the older mans too much. I decided not to do it, just get a number 1 seed instead. Now, if you win a playoff game, you get 200 points. And this includes the Super Bowl, so if you win the Super Bowl, this includes here, so you can get up to 600 to 800 at max, depending on where you start in the playoffs. If you win the conference championship, you get 1,000 points. And if you win the Super Bowl, you get the most points possible, 2,000. Quite a lot. And the last one, this one's a lot more subjective and hard to decide on. But if you draft a Hall of Fame player, you get 1,250 points for each Hall of Famer. Now, of course, that's subjective. What is a Hall of Famer to someone else might not be. So you're going to have to think about, is this player a Hall of Famer or not? But either way, one thing is important though. They must be drafted by you. None of the rookies at the start of the season, like all the rookies going into Madden 25 you're playing right now, at the start of your franchise, they don't count. These players have to be drafted by you. And hell, even if that player, say, goes on and has a Hall of Fame career somewhere else, that still counts because you drafted them. That player has to be drafted by you. If you sign a player that eventually becomes a Hall of Famer, that doesn't count because that was someone else's pick. You have to draft this Hall of Famer yourself. So, once you draft someone and they become a Hall of Famer in your eyes, you get another 1,250 points. Alright, so that's my point system. I'm up to maybe updating more in the future, but I think I got basically good for right now. Alright, so now, let's get into the franchises. There are, as I'm looking right now, 36 franchises I've done. Each one of these had at least 1 season done. I'm not adding any other franchises unless I did 1 season. I've done a whole bunch of franchises I remember off the top of my head, but I don't remember how long I did them for, and I know some of them did not go a full season, so I'm not counting them. The requirement to be on this list had to have been at least 1 full season they did from history. And in this franchise, this video is going to also talk about what team I picked, what game it was on, what system, and how I did the franchise, because sometimes I do franchises differently. Sometimes I play the games. Sometimes I sim, and a whole bunch of other things. Each one might have a unique way how I did it, and I'm going to explain it as I go on. Alright, so I'm going to go in order of the worst to the best. Alright, so here we go. Number 36. The Patriots on Madden 25 for the PC. This is a franchise I simulated, and I did this franchise on the beta back in July or whatever it was when it came out. I did one season. I start off to season 3 and 1. I was actually really impressed with that, as Drake May was actually playing really good. But then afterwards, the team really fell apart, and Drake May played horrible. We finished 6-11 our first year, which is a 2-game improvement from 2023 in real life, so that's good. But Drake May, I was not impressed with. At the end of the year, he threw, I think he had 18 passing touchdowns and 9 picks. I don't know about rushing touchdowns. Now, 18-9, that's not too bad for a rookie, but like 80% of those touchdowns came in like the first 4 weeks, and 80% of those picks were like the last half of the year. Like, he was pretty good starting year, but then the last half of the year, he was really, really bad. That ratio does not indicate anything. Unfortunately, though, when I finally got the game, this franchise wouldn't work anymore because it was a beta. So that's the end of this, and this is the lowest scoring franchise, unfortunately, because of it. As I scored only 600 points. Now, that sucks, but it only sucks because it was forced to end. Like, it was a 2-game improvement, so that's progress. Maybe I could have done better next year. But honestly, I will say this right now. If I was able to continue this franchise into the next season, I strongly might have considered trading away Drake May and get another quarterback in the draft, because there were a lot of pretty good quarterbacks in that draft. I was that unimpressed with Drake May and being one and done with him already. Could have traded away, got him some picks, and I probably could have drafted a quarterback in the first round who might have even had a better overall than him. Like, I think he had like 70 overall in the bat, so it probably wouldn't be that hard to find a quarterback that was younger and maybe better than him right off the bat. But yep, that's the end of this franchise. The lowest score in 1 by default. Alright, number 35. The Rams on Madden 16 for the PS3. When I got my PS3 back in 2021, I got Madden 16 with it as well. And this is a franchise I did back in June. I just finished it like a week or so ago in order to do this video, because it's the last one, the last franchise that I need to be done in order to do this video. So this was a franchise I simulated, and I am not a fan of Madden 13 to 17, especially on the 360 and PS3, because they are so slow in everything. It literally took like 3 hours to simulate the last like 12 weeks of the season or so, that one night when I finished it up. It took that long. It was so stupid. So anyways, team started off 2-0, then fell to 2-2, then won a game, then we lost 2 in a row to fall to 3-4, then we won 4 in a row to get to 7-4 and looked like we were going to easily make the playoffs. Then we lost a game to the Cardinals, which cost us a division lead at the moment. Then we beat the Lions and was up 8-5. We were looking really good to get the playoffs, and we lost all of our main games to finish 8-8. Very disappointing. We had one of the best defenses in the league, but our offense was horrible. I had to go through 3 total quarterbacks, and all 3 of them, I think, threw like 15 touchdowns to 15 picks. That was horrendous. As those older mans from like 2012 to 2016 were not really good simulating with passing stats, or simulating stats in general. They were bad offensively. So right now, this is the first franchise that still technically is ongoing. I haven't deleted or anything. I've scored 800 points. And I mean, technically, I went 8-8, which is better than the real life 6-10 they did the year before, and got the Rams their first non-losing season since 2006. So that's an accomplishment. I didn't get a losing season, but man, the way it finished was very disappointing. But I honestly don't know if I'm going to continue to speak more, because I did not like the stats, but I just can't stand how slow Madden 16 is on the PS3. The simulation and all that is just way too slow to me. People cry. I've seen people cry about how like the menus on franchise mode in the current Mads are slow. Oh my god, they are so. They're like Godspeed in comparison to 16. The Mads from 13 to 17 are not really good at all. They're like up there as like one of the worst Mads. So this might be the end of it, unfortunately, but still good nonetheless for what I could do. Alright, number 34. The Falcons on Madden 09 for the PSP. This was my actual PSP game I had back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, before I got rid of my PSP. Because I actually had Madden 09 for the PSP, as I did my video on my franchise a few years ago. As this was a series that I just simulated, and it was horrible. It was the first of the old franchise. This is the first franchise that's old on this list, because this is going to have a list of franchises I did a long time ago, not just current ones. So this was a terrible one. So anyways, the first year with the Falcons, start off 4-2, looking really good, but then collapsed to finish 7-9. Which, okay, real life going from 4-12 to 7-9, that's still a good start. That's still good. Going to next season, and we went 2-7 before finishing 4-12. Major regressions. Matt Ryan looked horrible, and I just gave up on it. So yeah, that sucked ass. Went 11-21, so I only scored 1,100 points. Yeah, really terrible. The first horrible franchise on this list, and not by default. Alright, so, number 33. The Giants on Retro Bowl. Yes, I'm including non-Madden games on here too, although this is the only non-Madden game on the list. Retro Bowl, for all of you who don't know, is a really, really, really awesome, like, Tecmo Bowl successor game on phone and the Switch. I have it on the Switch back in January of 2022, and oh my god, it is so dang good. It is awesome. Well worth having the best football game on the Switch. So anyways, this was my first experiment where I simulated the games on normal difficulty, where I just built up the teams and watched them play and all that really quickly. So anyways, the first franchise in this game, when you start off as a coach for a franchise, you have to play the last game of the season, and all the teams you always play at the start are horrible, like the worst team in the league and all that. And it takes a few years of draft in order to be good and such. So the first year, I went 4-13. Terrible, but I can't remember what the record was beforehand to judge in comparison, but compared to like all the other sims I did, that actually wasn't too bad to start off with a franchise. The next year, I went 9-8. I was 5-2 at one point. I was 9-5, looked like a chance to get a wild card spot, but then we lost the final 3 games to finish 9-8 and missed the playoffs. And I stopped playing afterwards, and I deleted the franchise some time ago. I did this franchise, I think, back in early 2023 as like an experiment to simulate and such. So yeah, I scored 1,500 points. Now, not really good, but unlike the Falcons one, this was going in the right direction. 4-13 and 9-8. Next year, they probably would have made the playoffs and all that. Compared to how I do on the harder difficulty, which I'll get to later on in the Retro Bowls, this was still a good franchise going in the right direction, just never finished. And by the way, I am going to do a Retro Bowl franchise where I simulate the games and all that coming up very soon, but I wanted to get this video done so I can add it into the list later on. Okay, so, number 32. The Rams on Madden 25 for the PC. As this is the most recent franchise I just finished its full season on. This was my franchise I did when I got Madden 25. As I played the Rams, I played the games on all pro difficulty, and man, it is tough. As Stafford threw so many interceptions in this 2024 season. He had, I think it was 35 touchdowns to 37 picks. And a lot of those picks were like really, really, really stupid. But hey, Cooper Kupp had almost 2,400 receiving yards, completely destroying Megatron's record as he was just getting open, but no one else was getting open, unfortunately. So the team struggled for quite a while, but there was one point where the Rams were 8-5. And the NFC was weak, so it was a pretty good spot to still get a playoff spot. But unfortunately, we then lost 3 in a row, and most of them were blowouts. Hell, we got destroyed 35-7 to the 49ers early in the game in one year, in one of the games and such. We were terrible, and was looking like at 8-8, we actually might blow our chance to make the playoffs. We had to beat the Seahawks the final week of the year, and we barely did it. It was an offensive scoring game, but we actually did it. We went 9-8, and we actually made the playoffs. And the playoffs, we visited the Cowboys, and at first, the first half of the game was going pretty good. Offensively, we weren't having any turnovers or anything, although we weren't scoring much. We were getting the job done, and the defense was actually good at having a good job as we led 17-9 going into the halftime. But then the second half, the team completely imploded as Stafford threw 4 straight interceptions, and we lost 47-17 or something like that. It was terrible. So it was a regression from the year before. By the way, when I made this slide, I was incorrect. It's not 1,100 points. It's 1,600. So I don't know how I screwed that up. So yeah, it's a regression from the year before, but so not a good sign. And I'm also a little concerned because going into next season, there's a chance Stafford could maybe retire at age 37. And if he does, oh boy, I'm going to be in deep shit because I don't have another good quarterback. And to make matters worse, there is so far only one good quarterback in the draft. Top 5 talent, everyone else is day 3. So you have one good quarterback and the rest are like round 4 and so on back. I'm not going to get that top 5 pick, and I'm not going to do a stupid trade to get up there to get it. So if he retires, I might have to hope a really good quarterback drops in free agency and just throw every single money I have to get him. Thankfully, Tua could potentially fall there, which would be very good. Or I might have to straight up trade for a franchise quarterback, which is going to cost me a lot because I'm not in a good situation in that regard. So I'm kind of hoping, as much as Stafford sucks, that he doesn't actually retire. But we'll have to see. But once this video is up, I'll finally get back to it because I want to get back to these franchises. But I couldn't because I wanted to get this video done. Alright, number 31. The Jets on Madden 25 for the 360. The best of the Maddens of the horrible Madden era of 2012 to 2016. But it still was not really good. But this was a franchise I did as a Jet where I simulated them, but there was some sort of like practice thing you could do where you had like win a game in like 3 minutes or so or something like that. I can't remember what it was. I did that to try and improve my players as quickly as possible. So of course, at the beginning of the franchise, I already gave up on Mark Sanchez. I made Geno Smith the starter right off the bat. And we start the year 0-4. Then we won 2 in a row. Then we fell to 2-6. And it was funny because despite being 2-6, the offense and defense overall was actually pretty high up there. Like almost 89, 91, stuff like that. The team really improved, but we just couldn't win any games. So I just figured just screw and just accept it. But then the turnaround happened. We then won 3 in a row to get to 5-6. Then we lost to the Dolphins to get to 5-7. And then we won all of our remaining games to go 9-7 and make the playoffs. 2-6 to 9-7 in the playoffs. We had to visit the Texans in the wild card round, and we lost, which is unfortunate. But I had hoped that 2014 was going to be like a Super Bowl year, potentially. And we actually started off the year 3-0 before we lost to the Broncos on Sunday night when we fell to 3-1. And then afterwards, I stopped playing the franchise. I never played it afterwards. And I don't know if it's dead or gone, per se, because I don't know if I deleted it. It's on a hard drive because I had 2 360s at the time, and when my first 360 died, I actually took out the hard drive for it and alternated it between it and the hard drive on my newer 360 at the time, and I don't know where it is. I don't even know if it's in the current 360 or all. So this franchise could potentially be dead, but I'm not sure. But even if it is dead, I don't know if I would continue it other than maybe finish that 2014 season, but after that, I don't know if I can continue on with it. So I scored 1,900 points, but the team was going in the correct direction. Just sucks I never got to see it finished. Maybe it could have been a Super Bowl year for all we know. I don't know. All right, number 30. The Bills on Madden 19 for the PC. I got Madden 19 on the PC back in 2023, and this was the newest franchise I tried doing. I didn't think I was going to do well with it because the Bills were really horrible going into 2018. The only hope was I at least have Josh Allen, so maybe he'll be good for the future. So when I started the franchise, the Bills started off 0-4, which I wasn't surprised about. But then the team completely turned it around, and they went 9-7. Hell, the last week of the year they were 9-6, and all they had to do was just beat the Dolphins on the road, and we would make the playoffs. But nope, they lost in overtime, so we went 9-7. Massive turnaround, but although the team still didn't look really good. But Josh Allen had a pretty good year, and I had a lot of hype going into next year. Then in 2019, we collapsed and went 5-11. Although Allen still played pretty good. So then the 2020 season came up. And despite going 5-11, I had the number 2 overall pick. And there was a bunch of good quarterbacks in the draft. So I decided to take a bold gamble. I traded Josh Allen away to the Saints. And I was going to get a new quarterback to replace him with the 2nd overall pick. I got him. And 2020, I started off the year 3-3. But then afterwards, I went on to lose every game but one to finish 4-12. And now I had the number 1 overall pick. And my new rookie quarterback did not play very good. And almost all of our losses, too, were very close. So it makes me feel like we're not actually that bad. We just couldn't finish off games and all that. But I had the number 1 overall pick. I did the draft and all that. In the last 2 drafts, I've really cooked, but so far I have no idea if I've succeeded whatsoever. And I haven't touched the franchise after the 2021 draft, so next time we'll see how year number 4 does, but so far it's not been very good. It's a case of I feel like the team's getting better each year, but we keep going backwards. As right now I have a score of 2,000 points. That's just unfortunate, but hopefully when I get back to it, we'll do better. Alright, number 29. The Titans on Madden 19 for the PC. This was the franchise I did right when I got Madden 19. This was before the Bills franchise. And it sucked. I don't even remember all the details about it because I never wrote it down or anything. But here's what happened. I went 5 years after 2019. I let Marcus Mariota go, and I drafted a new quarterback, and he was pretty good overall. I can't remember star, superstar, whatever it was back then, because it's not the same setup as it was in Madden 20 and onward. But he was pretty good, but we just never did good. And in 5 years, I never had one non-losing season. That's right, every year was a losing season. And the best season we went was like 6-10, I believe. It was terrible. And I just deleted it before I did the Bills franchise. I just didn't really have any interest in finishing it. Just a terrible franchise all around. I don't even remember the exact record. I believe it was 23-57, but that's just going off what I think happened. So I potentially scored 2,300 points. Terrible, terrible franchise. Alright then, number 28. The Eagles on Madden 08 for the PSP. This is a franchise I did several months ago, where it gave me a random choice, and the Eagles were the worst team. It gave me like all playoff teams and all that, and I decided to do the Eagles and see how I can keep them going and all that. So the first year, the team actually regressed to 9-7, just missing out on making the playoffs, unfortunately, because of injuries and such. But I had hope that maybe we go back there next year. And then the team regressed to 6-10 in 2008, as the team was not looking really good, even though I cooked in the draft. So, going into 2010, I figured we'd still be good and all that, but no. We regressed to 2-13-1. We were the worst team in the league, and we had the number 1 overall pick. It felt like the Bills franchise, where I feel like the team gets better every year, but we keep doing worse. So then the next year, we started off okay, but then we ended up finishing 5-11 in a terrible division. Man, it was like the 2020 Eagles. So yeah, that's where it's left off after 4 years. Only highlight is, of course, having that first win season, but afterwards it's been a legacy of failure, as I scored so far just 2,450 points. And going into 2011, if I continue the franchise, I still have McNabb. He has 1 year left. I don't know if I'm going to look into maybe getting a quarterback in the draft to succeed McNabb next year, or just stick with McNabb and then hope to get a quarterback in the next year's draft. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but McNabb's going to be gone very soon. I'm going to have to get a new quarterback and just hope they do good, because, man, this franchise has been nothing but struggle so far. Alright, number 27. The Lions on Madden 04 for the PS2. And up front, you're going to see a lot of Madden 04, and you're going to see a lot of the Lions. The Lions actually might be the most common team on here, at least 3 or 4 times. Anyways, this was a franchise I did back in January, where I simulated the games. However, I rigged the outcome based upon how I think the Lions would do against their opponent. If I thought the Lions were better, I would have them win, but if I thought they were going to lose, I would have them lose. So, the first year, the Lions actually had a really good turnaround, especially defense. They had, I think it was the 8th ranked defense in the league, and that's what led them to do so good in the first year. The Lions went 9-7, and thanks to the NFC North being weak, the Lions not only made the playoffs, they would win the NFC North, their first division win in 10 years. In the wild card, they hosted the 49ers, who we beat earlier in the year, but this time around we lost in the wild card round, which was unfortunate. And the 2004 draft, I think I cooked a lot. I got a lot of cheers from the crowd. But unfortunately, the team went 2-7, and I just gave up at it. I never bothered playing afterwards. And I don't even remember, and I didn't even feel like adding the stats on, because I don't remember the exact record. So I said, fuck it, I'll just keep only the first year and just be happy about what I did. So not bad for a one-year try. 9-7, win the division, making the playoffs and all that. Scored 2,450 points. Just think about this. In 1 year with the Lions, I scored just as much points as I did with the Eagles in the previous franchise in 4 years. 1 year, I already beat the Eagles. And I technically would have beat the Eagles because I won at least 1 or 2 more games than the other franchise, but that doesn't count. Alright, so number 27. The Buccaneers on Madden 20 for the PC. This was the first franchise I did on Madden 20, and it also was like the Titans one where I just simulated the games and all that. And speaking of the Titans, I made this at the same time with the Titans franchise, and funny enough, they pretty much went exactly like the Titans franchise. I lasted 6 seasons, and I never had a winning record either. Every record was a losing record. As after the 2019 season, I let Jameis Winston go, and I drafted a very, very, very good quarterback. He was superstar X Factor as a rookie. I freaking cooked with him. And he had 2 really good years, but he wasn't really good afterwards. We had some like 6 and 10s, a 2 and 14, all that. There was 1 year where I think it was after we drafted our rookie, we started off 6 and 0 and thinking we were going to at least make the playoffs. But nope. The team went from 6 and 0 to 7 and 9. That's right, I lost all my games remaining but 1 after starting off 6 and 0. God, even the 0-3 Vikings and the 0-9 Broncos at least went 500 or better. We couldn't even do that. And after the 6th season where we went, I think 5, 10 and 1 or something like that, I was actually fired because I don't think I turned off the not fire owner. I'm the head player coaches and all that. So the franchise unfortunately was forced to end after 6 years. And God, it sucked. Like the Titans one. At least I lasted 1 more year, and the quarterback I drafted was vastly better than the Titans one. But nothing much, just 3,150 points. Sad. Alright, number 26. The Titans on Madden 23 for the PC. This was a franchise I did some years ago with Gavin, where we did a franchise online where he played the Giants, I played the Titans. And the reason why I picked the Titans was because we were going to play in week 1 when he picked the Giants. And he didn't know that, so I wanted to troll him with it. So anyways, the first year, we played in the first game, and he beat me. He almost cost it at the end because he had a chance to burn out the clock, get a game-winning field goal or whatever, just to run in my face. But no, he kicked the field goal with like 30 seconds remaining. Completely stupid what he did, which gave me enough time to try and get the win still, and I actually made it to midfield pretty quickly, but I did a Hail Mary catch. I think it was caught, but I ran out of time after the catch, so I couldn't try and do something else or get a field goal or whatever. He beat me by 3 points. Then I won 4 in a row, and then I hit a really bad rut coming up. I then played the Colts, and I got completely obliterated by like 40 points. Tannehill couldn't stop throwing picks, and Matt Ryan just obliterated us offensively. Then we destroyed the Texans, where Tannehill put up 8 touchdowns and broke the record until Gavin broke it next week with Daniel Jones' 10 touchdowns in a game. But then we lost to the Chiefs in a close game because Tannehill had 3 straight drives throwing an interception, but the Chiefs couldn't do anything with it, but we still couldn't win either. And then the next week we hosted the Broncos, and a wild, high-scoring offensive game went back and forth, and at the end of the game almost, I got the touchdown, and I decided to go for the 2-point conversion to try and win it, and I succeeded in getting it to take a 36-35 lead with like 30 seconds left, and the Broncos just casually went downfield, got a game-winning field goal to win it. So I went from 4-1 to 5-4. And if I didn't mention it, we were doing this on pro difficulty too. 4-1 to 5-4. But thankfully after that rut, the team massively turned around as we won all of our remaining games except losing to the Chargers, where our offense couldn't do anything in a low-scoring game against that elite Chargers defense somehow. So he goes 17-0. I go 12-5. I had to start from the wild card round where we hosted the Broncos in the rematch, and I beat them. And in the divisional round, I hosted the Browns, and I spanked them. So I made it to the AFC Championship, where I hosted the Chargers, which was funny for him because it's either me or facing his favorite team in the Super Bowl, and I couldn't believe he said this. He actually wanted me to beat the Chargers. I never thought I would ever hear him say that. Unfortunately, the beginning of the game, it was not going good, as the Chargers took a quick 10-0 lead in the first quarter because we couldn't get anything going. But after that rut, we turned around, and we destroyed the Chargers to make it to the Super Bowl, where I had to face Gavin. In the Super Bowl, the Giants and Titans, and the game was still high scoring, however, it was ugly. I made Daniel Jones look like dog shit for the first time in the season, but oh god, Ryan Tannehill and Malik Willis, because I took Tannehill out because it was so bad, both combined, I think, 5 interceptions, as they couldn't get anything going. And in the end, the Giants won 42-38. So 2 close games against Gavin, and I lost both times. We then started the 2023 season, and I actually drafted a quarterback in the 3rd round, I think. And we actually started off 3-0, but unfortunately in that 3rd game, while we beat the Browns, Tannehill was so terrible in that game, I decided, screw it, I'm going to probably have the rookie play for the rest of the year. Unfortunately, Gavin didn't buy the game. He had EA Access or whatever, like a subscription, and he canceled it or just ran out or whatever, so he couldn't play anymore, so we had to cancel this franchise, unfortunately. So yeah, that's the first franchise I actually made the Super Bowl here. And I still did pretty good for accomplishment. I scored 4,550 points. It would have been nice if we could continue, because I would have really liked to see how that rookie quarterback would have done. But unfortunately, that's not to be. Alright, number 24. The Vikings on Madden 2003 for the PS1. This was a franchise I did, I think, at the beginning of 2024 as well, where I simulated the Vikings. And the first year, the Vikings actually started off pretty good, but then collapsed near the end of the year. They went 9-7, and I don't know if I made the playoffs or not. I am absolutely not sure. But by and large, the first 4 years, the Vikings were just like mid. They were like, I think we went like 8-8 one year, then 8-7 one another year, and then one year we went 6-10 because of injuries and such. So then year 5, I decided I'm going all in. We gotta do something coming up. We gotta make like a Super Bowl run, stuff like that. So I signed like every single good elite free agent player I can get and such, and I had like a 91 overall. I was like one of the best teams in the NFC. I felt like we were finally gonna make a deep run. And we went 4-12. Womp, womp, womp. And unfortunately, in the older Maddens, in the Maddens from like 2000 to 2002 on the PS1 and the N64, you're not the owner. You're the coach. So if you do bad, you get fired. And after that 4-12 season, I was fired to end the franchise. And yeah, it sucked. Although, to be fair, it was more mid than terrible. Although, man, that 4-12 last year, that was bad. I scored 4,550 points. And again, to put this in perspective, the Titans franchise I just last covered, I scored that amount of points in like 1 year and 3 games, where it took 5 years for this one. But yeah, not a good franchise. Alright, number 23. The Ravens on Madden 11 for the 360. And by the way, this is not the only time we're going to be seeing the Ravens on 11 as franchise. There's another one coming up later on. So anyways, this was my main franchise I played as myself on 11, where I played the Ravens, but I can't remember if I had to have done a fantasy draft, because I think that was the only way you could have done it back then. But this Ravens team had the worst players in the game possible. That's right, I made the franchise with the Ravens having all the worst players in the game as like a challenge, as I played the game on pro difficulty. Oh man, that was wild. But that's what I did, and the first year, God, I'm trying to remember I can't remember the quarterback's name. I think it was like Sergio or something. But the first year, we went 12-4 despite having the worst players in the league. I think my quarterback even broke the touchdown record for like 8 touchdowns in a game or something like that. It was wild. But during the playoffs, I actually did a thing where I simulated the games and watched the playoff games. And the first playoff game with the number 1 seed too, I might add, we hosted the Titans and we lost. We didn't get blown out, but we lost. Which I guess I can't be too surprised, since it is the worst team in the game by a mile. But then the next year, oh boy, we went 16-0, dominated everyone. I think it was only like one game where we had a challenge and such, but we cooked. And the divisional round, we were going to host the Steelers, but I never played it. I never simulated it. I never touched the franchise afterwards. Just lost interest in doing it. And that's where it wraps up there in this funny franchise I did. So yeah, really good season. Didn't include the 16-0 that I did in 2011, but that's on there as well, as I scored 6,700 points. Very good and all that for 1 year. But it's not the best you can do in 1 year, as we're going to see later on, and we still got more coming. Alright, number 22. The Panthers on Madden 12 for the 360. As this was my only main franchise I did as myself on 12, and it was pretty much in the same vein as I did with the Ravens one I just mentioned. This was a fantasy draft, and I did pick the worst players like I did with the Ravens. However, there was a few changes. One, I played the playoff games and all that if I showed up. But two, since this game was the first that let you edit players, I had where after 4 weeks, if there was a player that had a hot streak on my team, I would give them a 5-point overall increase, and if they were on a cold streak, I would lower them by 5 points and such. As I played all the games on pro difficulty, and I gotta say, Madden 10 to 12 are like the best 360 games in my experience. 12 is the worst of all of them in terms of gameplay. I could never pass the ball for anything in that game, but I could run easily with no problem. That game was like way too biased towards the run. Passing was like impossible for me pretty much, even on pro difficulty. So anyways, unlike the Ravens, the Panthers actually struggled to start off the year, as they were, I think, 3-4 at one point, as we just had problems with the offense. We could run the ball, but we couldn't pass when we needed to, which was really annoying. But then the team turned it around, as we went on to win all of our remaining games to go 12-4 and still get the number 1 seed, which was actually very lucky, because the number 2 team in the division, in the conference, was the Aaron Rodgers-led Redskins, who gave us our last loss in the regular season. So if we lost one more game, we would have fallen to the number 2 seed, so we got lucky there. I can't remember who we played in the divisional round, but we beat them. And then in the NFC Championship, we hosted Aaron Rodgers and the Redskins in a rainstorm too, as that game was ugly. But we managed to get the win and make the Super Bowl, where we would have to face the Titans, who I think, funny enough, although I'm not fully sure, I think they might have had Cam Newton as their quarterback, which would be hilarious if that was the case, but I don't remember. But we cooked them. We obliterated them. I think we scored like 70 points, and they scored like a touchdown or something like that. We just cooked them, as we were getting interceptions everywhere. We ran the ball very well. My running back, he had over 2,000 yards, I think, easily. He had like an 84 overall at the end of it because of all the hot streaks he had. So yeah, a very dominant year. But of course, I lost interest in playing afterwards, so that wrapped it up there. But I scored a nice 7,250 points, which is really good, but still is not the highest score you could possibly get in 1 year, as we still got more of them coming up. But that was still a very fun franchise. Alright, number 21. The Redskins on Madden 06 for the PSP. This was a franchise I did, I think, all the way back in 2020, and I just finished it recently. Like a few weeks ago, I finally finished it. So anyways, this was a franchise where I played the games, but I would super sim the defense, and the games were 15-minute quarters. Yep, I went full 15-minute quarters for like a more authentic experience. And Madden 06, in terms of like simulating, might be like one of the worst Madden games in terms of simulating when it comes to stats. I've never mentioned this before, but in Madden 06, at least for the PSP, that game is so biased towards defense. Like, usually there'll be like only like 2 quarterbacks that put up even good numbers. The rest of them, I kid you not, will put up like 5 touchdowns to 30 picks and stuff like that. Absolutely stupid stats and all that. And that showed up too in this franchise. I was playing on pro difficulty, and I'm telling you one thing, I, by and large, could not pass the ball for shit. Most players would usually get open, but they would just casually just drop them all the time, or just sail past them, and stuff like that. Both my quarterbacks had an under 50% ratio accuracy because they just kept not getting passes done. But I was able to run the ball very well. It was like the Panthers franchise, where Clinton Portis at the end of the year, he had over 3,600 yards and over 30 touchdowns because he was getting open like crazy. He had like 5 games where he had over 300 rushing yards. He would always get open, but my receivers would never catch balls ever. So anyways, that franchise, we started off 4-0 and looking really good, but then we lost 2 in a row because of the quarterback problems. And my starting quarterback, Patrick Ramsey, suffered an injury, so he was going to be out for several weeks. So I gave me an opportunity to try out Jason Campbell, the rookie, who had the near same overall, but he had the scrambling ability unlike Patrick Ramsey. And he just did not really play that good. Like, they didn't play like, oh my god, they're horrible. But they didn't play like, oh my god, they're elite either. I think they both had like about like 15 touchdowns to like 4 picks each, like Tyrod Taylor numbers and such. But I was not impressed with Jason Campbell. So once Ramsey came back, I kept him as a starter. And we won every game except one where we lost to the Bucs because we couldn't get any offense going. That was like the one game where Clinton Portis couldn't do anything. But we went 13-3 and we got the number 1 seed. So we hosted the Saints in the divisional round, and it was high scoring. It was tied up at 21 going into the second quarter. 42 points already in the first quarter. But after that, we obliterated the Saints. Like 48-21 or something like that. They didn't have a chance afterwards. Then we hosted the Seahawks in the NFC Championship. And by the way, we destroyed the Seahawks like 74-21 early in the year with Clinton Portis' first 300-yard game. But the Seahawks in this game actually showed up to play. They were still with us for most of the all the way to the fourth quarter. They were right there in terms of scoring. They were showing up. But in the fourth quarter, we finally started to pound them into the ground, and we ended up winning 51-38. Making the Super Bowl, where we had to play the number 1 team in the AFC, the Jets. And oh my goodness, the Jets showed up in this game, as Clinton Portis, by and large, couldn't do anything for a good chunk of the game. And the Jets had multiple 10-point leads on us. They led for the entire game until the fourth quarter at one point. Like, they were really dominant. But we still managed to hang in there. And near the end of the game, we were down 10 points again. And just a few minutes, we scored the 2 touchdowns needed to take the lead. And then the Jets, with like a minute or so remaining to still have a chance, they turned it over, and then we won the game. It was like 58-54 or something crazy like that. It was a hard-fought game and all that. Clinton Portis eventually ran for like 250 yards, and boy, did we need that. That was insane. And that's where the franchise laughed it off at the moment. 13-3, win the Super Bowl, and having to actually fight for it to get it to. Very satisfying. 70,350 points. I don't know if I'm going to continue it, though, because I don't like the offense this game. The game is way too biased towards running the ball and biased against passing. If there was some way to fix it where it would be more balanced, maybe I would enjoy it more. But right now, I'm not sure. But I will say this, if I do continue it, thanks to assistant coaches, both Patrick Ramsey and Jason Campbell have a 99 overall. But despite the fact that Campbell is a rookie, I actually think I might trade him away. Like, I was not impressed with him. I'd rather stick with Patrick Ramsey, believe it or not. Like a dud pick, get some picks out of it. Someone have a franchise quarterback, and maybe we'll do good with Ramsey. But like I said, I'm not sure if I'm going to continue this because I really did not like the offense this game. It was so biased against passing. All right, number 20. The Vikings on Madden 09 for the PSP. This was my Vikings franchise YouTube series I did back in 2018 and 2019. So, in this game, I played the games in full, and then I alternated the difficulty throughout the entire season. I think the preseason I was on rookie, because I wasn't sure about the difficulty of the game again. Once I got used to it, I did pro in the first game, and I obliterated the Packers so badly, I decided to go all pro. And then I did all pro for the rest of the franchise until the 2009 season, where I think I might have gone all Madden. Not sure. But anyways, for the Vikings franchise, like I said at the beginning, I destroyed the Packers. I then had to pull off a big comeback against the Colts where I barely won in overtime to get to 2-0. Then I lost to the Panthers where I was down 17-0 at one point. I pulled off the comeback, but I couldn't get the win. Then we won 2 in a row to get the 4-1. And then we lost 2 horrible games back-to-back. We lost to the Lions 10-0, I think, because we couldn't get anything going offensively. And I kid you not, the Lions were third down converting merchants. Every time I would give them like a third or long or something like that, they would casually, with no effort, just run the ball and get a big gain for the first down like that. They were casually running out the clock with no effort, so we lost that. And then the next week, we lost to the Bears in a complete blowout, 30-10, as we couldn't get anything going. Travaris Jackson threw like 3 picks and stuff like that. It was horrible. But then afterwards, we went on to win all of our remaining games somehow to finish 13-3 and got the number 1 seed. And in the playoffs, I think we hosted the Seahawks, who had a losing record, by the way, I think. But we still beat them. And then the next week, we hosted the Giants in the NFC Championship, who we barely beat in the last game of the year, I think. The Giants played up a good fight once again, but then the fourth quarter, we started to run away with it, and we ended up winning, making it to the Super Bowl, where we faced the Colts once again. I thought it was going to be a tough game like it was early in the year, but nope. We spanked them. I think it was like 23-6. They couldn't do anything, and we won the Super Bowl. So good for the Vikings. But then in the 2009 draft, there was no quarterback, so I guess I was going to stick with Travaris Jackson. But there was an elite wide receiver I wanted to get. And I did a big blockbuster trade with the Broncos to get the number 1 overall pick to make sure I drafted him. And I got him. First game, we hosted the Giants. We played the Giants, I think, or the Bengals. I can't remember who it was. We beat them. Then we visited the Bears, and we won in overtime in an ugly game where Travaris Jackson threw 3 picks. And then the next week, we visited the 49ers, and we got spanked as Travaris Jackson threw 3 picks afterwards. And after that, I just lost interest in it. I don't even think I even uploaded that last video against the 49ers. I just lost interest into it, and I deleted the video series afterwards. Still a successful franchise, as won a Super Bowl, got a score of 7,550 points. I still have no idea how I went on to win every game the remainder of the 2008 season, but I did, and I kept getting like better each week in terms of blowouts. Alright, now on to number 19. The Lions on Madden 04 for the PC. Like I told you, the Lions are going to show up a lot, and they were not the only one I did on Madden 04. This one is on the PC, however. This franchise I simulated. I actually don't remember if I simulated or played him. I really don't remember. I think I did play him. But anyways, this franchise I play on the PC, and I played it on rookie difficulty because Pro in Madden 04, in my experience, is way too hard. Unfortunately, rookie isn't really fun either because I blew out everyone. And of course, made it harder because this was on the keyboard because I didn't have a controller set up at the time. So I kind of did have to earn my wins too at the same time, unlike other times on rookie. But anyways, that franchise, we went 15-1. I think our only loss was hosting the Packers on Thanksgiving, but we dominated. I can't remember who we played in the playoffs, but we won the divisional round, we won the conference championship, we made it to the Super Bowl where we played the Dolphins, and we won them. And then I never played the franchise afterwards. This franchise in 1 year got almost the perfect amount of points you can get in a regular season. I mean, in a year. 7,550 points. Almost perfect. But there's one franchise that did better than this, and is the perfect possible way, unless some freaky stuff happens, to get higher points. Anyways, Lions, 7,550 points. Alright, number 18. The Cardinals on Madden 04 for the Xbox. As this was one of the older franchises I did. I might have done this. Who knows? I actually think I might have done this around the same time as the Lions, but I don't remember. But anyways, the Cardinals I always would try to simulate games where I try to build them up and all that because the Cardinals were terrible. But like I said before, all the times I tried, they were either terrible, I could never have good franchises with them, or when I played them, I would play terrible because, like I said, Pro was just too difficult for me. And one time, I said, fuck it, I'm just going to do rookie. I don't care. I just want to do it and just relax and have some fun. And I did have fun, as I obliterated everyone to go 16-0, as I just dominated dominated and obliterated everyone. It felt so good after like months and months and months of struggle. I can't remember who I played in the playoffs, but I beat all of them to make the Super Bowl, where I played the Bills, and I beat them in like the biggest blowout you can imagine, pretty much, and that was the end of it. And this, in a 16-game schedule, is the most points you can get, 7,650 points. The only way you can beat this is if you do a more recent game with 17 games, or somehow, some way, I don't know how you do it, but go 16-0 and somehow start in the wild card round to get an extra 200 points in the playoffs. But other than that, this is the best you can get in a 16-game schedule. And it's amazing too, Emmitt Smith rushed for almost 2,000 yards, but his overall went down because it's so old. That was funny. Alright, so now, number 17. The Jets on Madden 09 for the PSP. This is a franchise I did back in 2020, I think. I haven't touched in a while though, but it's still there. This is a game where I super sim the games. I didn't play the games, but I didn't sim them either. I did super sim where I pick the play and then just hope the outcome goes my way and all that. So anyways, this Jets franchise, first year, we went 8-8, and we made the playoffs. Second year, we went 8-8 again, and made the playoffs. And of course, I think in 2010, I think I drafted a rookie who ended up becoming really, really good, but struggled his first year. But in year 3, 2010, we went 12-4 and got the division for the first time, although we were stuck as a wild card team. The next year, while my quarterback played better, the team regressed as they went 10-6, but we still made the playoffs and won the division. And that's where it wrapped up at the moment, as I kid you not, the Jets have lost every single playoff game. We've gone one and done. And all those losses, I think, were blowouts too, which is very unfortunate. So yeah, this is a very strange franchise, you think about it. On the one hand, I've made the playoffs every single year. I've never had a losing season. I've won the division 2 times. I have a rookie quarterback who's playing very good, but I have not won one playoff game. I feel like I'm Marvin Lewis right now. It's so weird. But hopefully, I'll get back to this franchise soon and hopefully do good enough and finally get a playoff win, because I still have the franchise. I just haven't touched it in a long time. Alright, number 16. The Bengals on Madden 2001 for the N64. As this is the oldest franchise of this list so far. I did this, I think, back in 2009 or 2010 when I started emulating games on my laptop. As, of course, like I remembered, this is the franchise where I played the Bengals and I simulated the games. Now, of course, this was actually a little bit of a unique one, because remember I said earlier in the older, the Maddens from 2000 to 2002 on the N64 and PS1, where if you do bad, you get fired because you're not the owner, you're the coach. And I've tried playing the Bengals and the Browns recently, and I always would get fired after 1 year, even though I didn't think I would do bad enough to get fired, because I always keep getting a losing record still. I decided to do something different. I actually played one of the best coaches in the game as a Bengal, Tony Dungy. I made Tony Dungy move from the Buccaneers to the Bengals head coach, because I figured, hey, he's good, maybe he'll get a pass and last a little bit longer. So anyways, the first 2 years, the Bengals had losing seasons. I think one of them was 6-10, but I can't remember the other one, but we had losing seasons. But we survived 2 years with losing seasons, so that was good. And then the wild thing happened. In the 2002 offseason, there was one player in free agency, and that was 100 overall, Randy Moss. Randy Moss was let go by the Vikings, and I picked him up. But that's not the only crazy thing. I don't know if I signed someone in free agency or I drafted someone, but I had a 100 overall cornerback by year 3. So that's impressive and all that, but here's the wild thing. Randy Moss had a 100 overall as a cornerback. See, you get where I'm getting at here? I had Randy Moss be the starter of not just being a wide receiver, but I had him as one of my cornerbacks. I had 2 100 overall cornerbacks on my roster, with one of them Randy Moss. And guys, it worked. He actually played offense and defense. And guess what? He was elite like my under cornerback. He was cooking offensively, and he cooked defensively. I went the game with my second starting quarterback being terrible because I didn't need to care. I just had Randy Moss cook for me on offense and defense. It actually worked. And then after I did that, the team massively turned it around as I was starting to make the playoffs regularly. I won the Super Bowl in one of the years. I don't remember which year it was. And then in 2007, I went 16-0. I actually went undefeated the year the Patriots did. Unfortunately, however, not only do I think I didn't win the Super Bowl, I don't even think I made the Super Bowl. I might have choked in the playoffs, but I don't remember. I'm not fully sure. I think I played all the way up to 2010, so like 11 seasons, and after that I stopped playing. This is a very old franchise, so I remember almost very little of everything. I don't remember the playoff record, I don't remember the regular season record, I don't remember the Super Bowl record, I don't remember a whole lot of stuff. So because of this, the legacy score is a lot lower than it would be otherwise. This would probably be in the top 10 right now if I knew the exact stats and everything. But that's all I know right now, so I scored 8,500 points. So, yeah, that sounds a little low, but this Bengals franchise was very successful, and I still can't believe what I did with Randy Moss. That was wild. That was just too insane to leave that out. So, yeah, that wraps up that franchise. And now, number 15, the Buccaneers on Madden 10 for the PSP. This was the franchise I did back in 2020, and this franchise is very similar to the Lions when I mentioned on 04 some time ago, where I picked who I think was going to win when I look at the stats. If I thought my Bucs could win, I'll have them win. But if I thought they were going to lose, I would have them lose. So anyways, like I said, I did this franchise back in 2020. And I've done 6 seasons. And it's all over the place. The first year I went 5-11. Of course, the Buccaneers were terrible. Not surprised. 2010, however, the team went 10-6. Made the playoffs. And actually won a playoff game in a wild card round. But we lost in the divisional. The next year we went 4-12 like they did in real life. How funny how the Buccaneers were being like real life so far. But then the team turned it around. 2012, we went 11-5 and won the division and won a playoff game before we lost to the Vikings in the divisional round. By the way, we're going to hear that name a lot coming up. And then in 2013, the team regressed to 10-6, and unfortunately, the NFC was so low that 10-6 was not enough to make the playoffs. Hell, the Panthers and the Bears also went 10-6, and they didn't make the playoffs. 3 10-6 teams didn't even make the playoffs in the NFC because it was so loaded. Insane. Then the next year, we went 11-5. We won the division, and we got a first-round bye. We would beat the Redskins and make the conference championship for the first time ever, where we'd visit the Vikings, and they cooked us. As the Vikings, even though Favre isn't in the game because the game came out before Favre came back to the Vikings. But the Vikings and the Chargers have been dominating in this franchise. They've won like the majority of the Super Bowls and such. And yeah, unfortunate they haven't won much yet. I actually tried playing this franchise some time ago. I did the draft and everything. I was all ready to go. I was just doing some like trade block stuff to try and get some picks for my players I was trading away. And the game crashed on me, and I never got the save, so all the work I did, gone like that. So I haven't played since. I'm really disappointed about that. I mean, no, this still has been a successful franchise if you think about it. I made Josh Freeman play good so far. We've made the playoffs 3 times, won the division twice, made the conference championship. Who knows? Maybe in 2015, I think it was, we could have made a Super Bowl appearance. I don't know, since the game had to crash on me, but we'll see. But this still has been a successful franchise. We just haven't gotten a lot of like playoff success, though. All right, number 14, the Lions on Madden 10 for the 360. Like I said, the Lions were going to be on here the most. They're the most I've played of all the Maddens. Anyways, this was a very common franchise I would do on Madden 10. Play the Lions after they went winless in 2008, try and rebuild them. I did so many franchises with the Lions, but I never did one where I played this long. I played 2 seasons with this one, and I played the games on pro difficulty. So anyways, the first year, the Lions went 10-6, a massive turnaround from going 0-16 the year before, and we visited the Packers in the wild card round, and we beat them in the snow too, which was really cool. Divisional round though, we visited the Cowboys, and we lost, and I think they went on to win the Super Bowl, which sucked. And then 2010, we went undefeated 16-0, one of the games we hosted the Packers on Thanksgiving, and we barely won that. It took like a last play at the goal line to get the win. It was a lucky pass too, because we would have lost otherwise. We barely got that win. So that 16-0, I felt I had to earn it for that game alone. And I don't remember who we played in the playoffs, but we made all the way to the Super Bowl where we played the Chargers, and we cooked them to get my first Super Bowl. And we were going to play the Chargers in week 1 of 2011, but I never played afterwards as I lost interest. It was a fun franchise, though, nonetheless, as I scored 9,550 points. Alright, so, number 13. Well, speak of the devil, it's the Chargers on Madden 2001 for the PS2. As this was a franchise I simulated and such. Madden 2001 on the PS2, however, is weird. On the one hand, the stats are better, which is good. The bad news is that the playoff stats are inaccurate. You can be a third seed and potentially be a row team. Like, it's terrible how they do divisions. It really pisses me off because I care a lot about accuracy. But anyways, I did this franchise because I wanted to try and make Ryan Leaf successful and show that he can turn his career around. I think the first year we went 8-8, and he actually played not bad. 2001, however, we went 3-13, I think, and he was terrible. So I dumped Ryan Leaf after year 2, and I got a quarterback in the draft, and I had him for the rest of the way. I think we played like 15 seasons, but I'm not sure. Because, again, I don't remember much about this, but I got the Chargers to the Super Bowl 2 times. Both times we played the Redskins, and we won both times. 2005 and 2011 were the years I won the Super Bowls. But after that, I just lost interest in playing it. It's kind of like the Bengals, where I know the score is better, but I just don't remember all the details about it, so the score is artificially lower. The only reason it's hard for this compared to the Bengals is because I know I at least won another Super Bowl, whereas the Bengals won, I'm not even sure if I did or not. But the Chargers scored 12,500 points. So, still a very successful franchise. Alright, number 12. The Rams on Retro Bowl. This was the first franchise I did on Retro Bowl, and I played the games on Pro difficulty. So, of course, I took over the Rams. Lost the first game, no surprise, because this was the first time playing, so I wasn't used to the controls and all that. The first 3 weeks of the year, we were 0-3, and it was starting to get a little bit frustrating. But then the team turned around as we won 4 in a row to get back into the mix. Then we lost 2 in a row, and then we went on to win our next 5 games to get to 9-5, our first win season. And then we alternate, I think, the rest of the way. We went 10-7, but despite that, it was still enough to not only make the playoffs, but win the division. In the playoffs, though, we played the Saints, and we lost a close one, which sucked. But going 10-7, making the playoffs, that's pretty good. The next year, we alternated at the beginning of the year. We would win 2 games, and then we would lose 1. We went 2-1, and then 4-2. Then afterwards, we went on to win every single game left and all that. We won all the remaining games to finish 15-2. We got the number 1 seed. I can't remember who we played in the wild card. Oh, I think it was the Cowboys, and we beat them. And then in the conference championship, we played the Bears, and we beat them to make the Super Bowl, where we played the Ravens, who were just as good as us. And that game was like one of the few games I had to fight hard that year. And we won. Barely. Like, it took like a 2-point conversion at the end to get the win done. So, we got our first season done. So, the next year, I won the first game, but I decided to take it up a notch and do hard difficulty, and I lost the next 2 games. So, I was like, fuck that shit. I'm going back to pro difficulty. And then I won the next 5 or 6 to get to 6-2 and 7-2, and then I never played it. I went like a whole year plus not playing that franchise. And what I did recently, because I wanted to get this video done, I just simulated it the rest of the way like I did the other Retro Bowl franchise, which we're going to get up to very soon. And I went 11-6 the rest of the way, which unfortunately I think was only enough to get a wild card spot because the 49ers dominated. And the wild card round, I can't remember who we played, but we did win. And in the division round, we visited the Cowboys, and we lost. So that wrapped up this franchise. pretty successful franchise for my first time playing Retro Bowl. And you might notice this was the first franchise where I have a Hall of Famer. Now, Retro Bowl is going to be a franchise you're going to see a lot of Hall of Famers on because the game is so arcade that a player in just like 2 or 3 years could already have a Hall of Fame career based upon like the stats. So yeah, I had in just 3 seasons I played. Just 3 seasons, I already had a Hall of Fame wide receiver, I think, who had like 10,000 passing yards and almost 100 touchdowns. Yeah, I thought it was worth to be a Hall of Famer as I scored 13,350 points. Okay, number 11. The Ravens on Madden 11 for the PSP. I told you this was not the only Ravens franchise I did on Madden 11. This is where I play the games, but I play them on all-pro difficulty, and I simulate the defense. I just play just offense only. So yeah, the first year, the Ravens went 14-2. We lost a game to the Patriots where we should have won, but of course, right when I was about to score a touchdown, Ray Rice fumbled it, and the Patriots took it all the way back to the touchdown. That was the deciding factor of how we lost. And the end of the year, we lost an ugly game to the Bengals. I know I took out the Stars halfway through the game, but we should have played better than that. We just kept losing. And for most of the games, it was really strange. Like, some weeks I would have blow out people, but then other weeks it would be very close games. Like, I still had to fight for all these wins, but I still, by and large, dominated. Flacco played... He didn't dominate like a whole bunch of other franchises. He put up really good numbers for like 2010, but they'd be kind of like game manager numbers like now. He wasn't terrible like how I'd usually do in All-Pro. He only had like 6 picks. It was more of just not getting the ball out and all that for the receivers who would always drop him or something like that. Ray Rice, however, cooked. So in the playoffs, we hosted the Titans. I kid you not, everyone in the AFC South had a winning record too. It was insane. Anyways, we hosted the Titans. It was a hard-fought game, but we managed to get the win done. Hosting the Colts in the AFC Championship, it was a tough game at first, but then we dominated the rest of the way to go to the Super Bowl where we played the Vikings. Unfortunately, I couldn't play the Super Bowl because apparently PSP Maddens are very glitchy, and the game basically broke. And it was basically, if I played the game would crash, and I would be stuck here, because I didn't save throughout the entire playoffs, so I had to do the whole entire playoffs again, so I had to super sim the rest of the way and just hope it didn't fuck up even more. So I had to simulate the rest of the way, and we dominated the Vikings 34-17 to get our first Super Bowl. The next year, the team actually struggled early on in the year. We won our first 2 games, but then we lost 2 in a row to the 49ers randomly and to the Colts. And the Colts game, Joe Flacco got injured. He was going to be out several weeks. And I barely beat the Rams the next week with Alex Smith as my backup. And then the game crashed again. And I didn't save after the 49ers loss. So I didn't feel like playing the games again. So I forced lost against the Colts, forced win against the Rams. But of course Flacco was healthy. So I got bailed out in that regard. And the rest of the way, I won every game except one where I played the Cardinals on the road. And I was forced to super sim that whole game because of crashing. And we couldn't get anything going offensively. But we managed to go 13-3 and get the number 1 seed again. And the AFC, the division round, we hosted the Patriots. And oh my God, we got bailed out so much in that game. We kept turning over like crazy. Flacco was doing bad. Ray Rice couldn't do anything. And then the Patriots were about to get like a game-winning field goal. And we blocked it to save the game, force overtime, and the Patriots went downfield again, and thankfully our defense intercepted Brady, and then we got the ball back, and we went downfield and got the game-winning touchdown to save our game. We almost lost there. That was wild. And in the conference championship, we hosted the Colts once again, and this time we cooked them after getting revenge from them beating us earlier in the year. And in the Super Bowl, we played the Packers, and we cooked them like 45-6 or something like that. They couldn't do anything to get title number 2. And that's where I left it off for right now so I could do this video. On the one hand, 13-3, 14-2, yes. I got home field advantage, undefeated in the playoffs, Super Bowl, and yada yada yada. But I still had to earn all these most of these wins. Like, I'm not like getting bailed out all the time. Most of the games I have to fight really hard to get them. It's been a pretty good challenge though. But anyways, scored 14,800 points, which is very good. But now we're getting into the top 10 now. And oh boy, we're going to have a mix of some new ones and some old classic ones that none of you have heard about except maybe a few of you. Alright, here we go. Number 10. The Redskins on Madden 04 for the PC. This was my first franchise I did on the PC version when I got the game in late 2008. I played the Redskins, and I played the game on Pro difficulty, but, I played 1 minute quarters. That's right, 1 minute quarters. So because of that, all of our games I'll be winning like 7-3, 7-0, 10-7, or 10-3, or yada yada yada. I basically was guaranteed to have like one of the worst offenses in the league, but one of the best defenses in the league because of that every year. But I wanted to get these games done quickly, so that's why I did 1 minute quarters. And remember, I had to play on keyboard too, which made it even more hard. So I still had to somewhat fight to get these wins in 1 minute quarters with bad controls and all that. So anyways, the first year, we started off 4-0. Then we lost to the Eagles and Cowboys back-to-back weeks to fall to 4-2. But after that, we won all of our remaining games to go 14-2. Got number 1 seed. I don't remember who we played in the playoffs, but we made the Super Bowl where we played the Bills in the rematch from not only 12 years earlier in the Super Bowl, but that literal season where I beat them. And I beat them again in the Super Bowl. And I also forgot to mention, too, I simulated the playoff games. I didn't play the playoff games. I just simulated them, and we won them. So, Super Bowl number 1. Next year, we won 4 in a row. But then we lost to the Eagles, just like how it was last year, to fall 4-1. But after that, we won all of our remaining games to go 15-1, number 1 seed. We beat everyone in the playoffs to make the Super Bowl again, where we once again played the Bills. And we beat them again to win title number 2. But then the 2005 season happened. And the first game, we lost. I was like, well, that's odd. But hey, we've lost a game before every year. Let's just ignore that. Then the next game, I lost again. Like, uh-oh, now we're 0-2. That's not a good sign. We better start turning around. And then the next week, we lost again. We went 0-10. And it wasn't really that we were playing bad. We just were not getting lucky in the 1 minute quarters like we were the first 2 years. And after that, because we were already eliminated, everyone else was looking good in the NFC East except us. So we were already eliminated at 0-10. And I just stopped playing afterwards. I just lost complete interest when I started off 0-10. But despite that, this just barely makes the top 10. If any of my other franchises come behind, like the Ravens one that played a little bit more, this won't be in the top 10 for long. But right now, this still is a very successful 2-year run at least, losing only 3 games, scoring 15,000 points. Alright, number 9. The Jaguars on Madden 04 for the PS2. This is a franchise I talked to a few people about, but now I'm going to go into some detail about for everyone else. This is one of the older franchises too. I did like back in 2009, 2010. And for a long time, this was one of my longest franchises I simulated. It went quite a while for back then. So anyways, this franchise, I played the Jaguars where I simulated the games and such. So the first year, and I prioritized running the ball more. I had Jack Del Rio set up the sliders for the team to focus on running the ball more because I knew it was going to be more effective from my experience with the Cardinals and all that. And the first year, the team went 6-10, which is the same records they did the year before, so nothing much to say about that. 2004, however, we start off the year 6-6, looking okay, but still a little bit concerning, but still in the playoff race. Then the team went on to win every single remaining game to go to 10-6 and make the playoffs. We were a wild card team, however, as the Colts won a division. Speaking of the Colts, we had to visit them in the wild card round, and we beat them to make the divisional round where we visited the Steelers and we lost. But hey, going into 2005, I felt it was going to be a Super Bowl contending team and all that. We were going to make a big run and all that. And the first 2 games, we started off 2-0. We won our first 2 games. But unfortunately, a major disaster happened at Week 2 win. The majority of my starters suffered season-ending or close to season-ending injuries. I'm not shitting you. All offense and defense. The majority of my starters throughout offense and defense suffered serious injuries. It's like the worst injury in a week for a team. Like, everyone was injured really badly. And after that, the team completely and utterly died as we went 3-12-1 afterwards. I almost considered firing Jack Del Rio, but I decided to give him one more chance still. So then the next year, with all those terrible injuries gone, the Jaguars rebounded to go 10-6. And we not only made the playoffs, we not only won the division, but we actually got a first round bye at 10-6 because the AFC was that weak. And the divisional round, I can't remember who we played, but we won. So we made the conference championship. We were on the road too, but I don't remember who we played. But we won! We were going to the Super Bowl in year 4 where we were going to play the Rams in Miami. And we won! We won the Super Bowl in year 4. Let's go! Alright, so then the next year, 2007, we started off the year 1-2 and not looking really good. But then the team rebounded to finish 11-5, doing better than the year before, and we got the first round bye once again. In the divisional round, I think we played either the Colts or the Steelers, but either way, we beat whoever we played, so we were in the AFC Championship again where we're going to have to visit the Dolphins. Unfortunately, we lost that one in a close one, so we couldn't repeat as title contenders. And then going into 2008, I don't know how it happened, because I kept an eye on my coaching staff for every year, but some reason, Jack Del Rio was no longer the coach of the Broncos. It was Mike Shanahan, who I made my offensive coordinator, I think after the 2005 season. He somehow became my new head coach. And of course, I prioritized running the ball more. And oh boy, the team started off 9-0 before finishing 13-3 and getting the number 1 seed. We were dominant. I felt this was going to be a year we were going to win title number 2. So we hosted the Chargers in the divisional round, and they cooked us. They won and done us, and it was pretty convincing, like 27-10 and stuff like that. And then after that, 6 seasons, I just lost interest in it. 6 seasons, however, is still a long distance, though. This was, at that point, when I canceled it, my most successful franchise on Madden all time. 15,400 points. Made 4 win seasons, made the playoffs 4 times, won the division 3 times, home field advantage once, won a conference championship, won a Super Bowl. That was still very good. Although I feel bad for my running backs though, because I ran them like crazy because they were the only things that were doing really good offensively. Alright then. Number 8. The Raiders on Madden 24 for the PC. This, guys, is my Raiders YouTube series that I've been doing since April. And by the way, there's no spoilers. All the seasons I'm going to talk about here have happened. You've already seen them. I've made sure the most recent seasons have been uploaded to YouTube beforehand. There's no spoilers or anything. Everything you saw already happened. So, of course, this Raiders franchise... Oh my god, I'm starting to have like trouble remembering a whole bunch of stuff. But we start off the year, franchise 9-8, got rid of Jimmy G, drafted Adam Flower to be my new quarterback and all that. Eventually became Superstar X Factor. That year we went 6-11 though when I drafted him. No, 7-10 I think it was. No, it was 6-11. But then the next year we went 12-5, made the playoffs. We went all the way to the AFC Championship where we lost to the Jags, who we've been hearing a lot about. The next year I fell to 7-10. Then I went 10-7 and all that. So basically I've had up and down years where most of the time I'm either like struggling around 10-7, but somehow winning the division. And then there's like 2 random years where I go like 12-5 and 13-4, and somehow that's not enough to win the division. I have to be a wild card team. I made the conference championship another time where I played the Jaguars again, and we fucking lost to them again in overtime. And then we lost to the Jaguars again another time in the divisional round. I'm 0-3 against the Jaguars in the playoffs. It's really irritating how much they're my kryptonite. But yeah, this still is by and large a successful franchise. I've had a winning season every year but 2. I've made the playoffs 6 times. I've only won the division twice though, because every time I have a really dominant year, someone in my division somehow does better than me. It's really irritating. Here's one cool fact though about this franchise. I've won every time I've made the playoffs. I at least won a playoff game. I've never gone one and done. So I show up in the playoffs. I just can't get the job done all the way. I've never made the Super Bowl yet, which is this so far I think is the longest franchise I've gone outside of Retro Bowl, where I've gone 10 seasons or more and not one Super Bowl appearance. I've made the conference championship 2 times, and both times I lost to the Jaguars, as they are so annoying. So, if anything, this team is kind of low scoring, and it's only top 10 because it's gone 10 years. It's like one of my longest franchises outside of Retro Bowl and stuff. But hey, still in the top 10 for now. And hopefully when I get back to the Raiders franchise, I will finally get a Super Bowl. Alright, number 7. The Packers on Madden 2002 for the N64. This was the most recent, newest franchise I just did. I started this when I was watching Aaron do CKFL or IFL some time ago, because I was bored and had nothing else to do. And of course, I'm a coach on here, so if I do bad, I'll get fired. So, the first year, the Packers were really good. Favre had a really dominant year, and the team went 11-5, but the freaking 14-2 Buccaneers won the division, so I had to be a wildcard team. And funny enough, 4th seed, just like they were in real life. And the wildcard round, I hosted the 49ers, just like the Packers had to do in real life. Unfortunately, the results were not the exact same, as I would lose to them 51-42. What a high-scoring playoff game that was. So we lost. The next year, we looked better than ever. We had one of the best defenses in the league as well, and the team went 12-4 and got the number 1 seed. I can't actually remember who I played in the playoffs and all that, but we won all the way to make the Super Bowl where we played the Colts, and we beat them to get my title number 1. The next year, however, Favre took a big step back, and the offense took a big step back, but we had the league's number 1 defense, I think, or something close to there, so we went 11-5, but we still got the number 1 seed because the NFC was kind of weak. And we cooked in the playoffs. We won all of our games to make the Super Bowl once again, where we played the Jaguars. Hello, Jags, for my Raiders franchise. This time around, we beat them to win title number 2. And then in 2004, the team really struggled as Favre had like one of his worst years. Offense wasn't good, defense wasn't really good, and the team regressed to 9-7 and missing the playoffs. As hell, even if I went to 10-6, I might have missed the playoffs. The NFC Central was loaded. Everyone had 10 wins or better except me and the Bears. Hell, the Lions went 10-6 and they didn't even make the playoffs. The NFC was so loaded that year. So then in 2005, the Packers started off 4-0 and they looked really good. Favre had like his best season in years. He was cooking. We were looking really good. And then the team fell apart near the end of the year. We were 9-5 just like the year before. Still had a chance to make the playoffs and win the division. Hell, we still had a chance to get the bye at 11-5. And we lost our final 2 games. But it was still enough to make the playoffs, though. We were the 5th seed, I think. I think we were the 6th seed, actually. I think we barely got into the playoffs or something like that. Either way, we had to visit the Buccaneers in the playoffs, who won the division, and they cooked us both times in the regular season. But we beat them. We beat them on the road to get to the divisional round, where we faced the number 1 seeded Giants, I think it was. No, I think it was the Rams, and we lost. And that's where I wrapped up right now, because I wanted to get this video done before I can get back to it. And it's been a successful series so far, simulating. 5 years in, no losing seasons, made the playoffs 4 times, won the division 2 times, got home field advantage twice, I won the conference championship twice, and won 2 Super Bowls. Next time I get to it, however, is going to be very interesting, because Favre's going to be 37, I believe, going into 2006. So I wonder, will he retire? I might have to consider potentially drafting a quarterback this year coming up very soon. We'll have to see about that. That'll be very interesting to see. Alright, number 6. The Steelers on Madden 04 for the PC. This franchise I started back in January of this year, as it's the first franchise I've done on the PC version of Madden 04 for a long time. As I finally got to work, I tried to get it installed on my computer for like a decade, but it would never work or something like that. So I finally got a working copy and all that. And this franchise I simulated, but I have a player editor program where I would have it where after each game, if a player did, I think, good, I will upgrade her overall by a point. That way it can help me keep the teams very good, because it's pretty difficult to keep those teams good in those older Maddens. So I gave that a try, and the first year, the Steelers unfortunately regressed to 9-7, but we still made the playoffs, won the AFC North. We hosted the Dolphins, and we cooked them. We obliterated them, and I didn't think we were going to get it done, but we did it. The next week, however, we visited the number 1 seed Raiders, and we lost. So then the next year, And of course, in 2003, Jerome Best suffered a career-ending injury, which was very unfortunate. 2004, however, we went 14-2 with the league's best defense, and we got the number 1 seed. I thought we were going to finally make a Super Bowl. I can't remember who we hosted. Oh, it was the Bills, I think. Either way, we lost. We went one and done. That was very frustrating. So then the next year, 2005, I actually drafted a running back and all that, and he played very good in his rookie year. The team, however, regressed to 11-5, but it was still enough to win the division once again. And in the playoffs, I can't remember who we played, but we won. And the divisional round, we had to visit the Bills, I think, and we lost. Then 2006, we went 13-3, I think, and we got for the first round bye once again. And I can't remember who we played, but we won, making it to the conference championship for the first time, where we visited the Patriots, and we lost. Actually, no, I think we went 14-2, but they had a tiebreaker over us. But either way, 2007, I signed my starting quarterback, Tommy Maddox, who I still had. He was like 34 years old, I think. He was still pretty good overall. I decided I want to get a new quarterback after the last year. So I traded him to the 49ers in exchange for their number 1 overall pick. And I took the best quarterback in the draft. And he's been terrible. And the first year, the team went 7-9 as the offense really imploded. Although we still had a really good defense. But despite going 7-9, we still won the NFC North. We pulled so many teams that won the division with a losing record. And we had to host the defending champion Patriots in the wild card round. And we lost. That was unfortunate. 2008. Now my rookie running back started to play bad, and my rookie quarterback I drafted was not doing good, but we had one of the best defense in the league, and we went 13-3. And we got the number 2 seed once again. I can't remember who we played in the division round, but we won. Make it to the conference championship for the second time. We visited whoever it was. Oh, I think we hosted the Chargers. I think the number 1 seed, whoever was, lost. So we hosted Chargers, and we won! Making the Super Bowl for the first time in the franchise, where we had to play the Seahawks in the Super Bowl 3 years later than it was in real life. And that game was wild, as we won the Super Bowl in overtime, 38-35, as my rookie quarterback, for the first time in his career pretty much, actually cooked at the most important time and won the Super Bowl for us. And honestly, I think he should have gotten MVP for how good he was. He put up like 3 touchdowns. It was like his first good game. And that's where I left it off. I haven't touched the franchise since this June. As I scored 20,400 points at the moment, this is a very weird franchise. Because, on the one hand, I've had a win season every year but one. But despite that, I've made the playoffs and won the division every single year. I've always won the division. I've always made the playoffs, even with a losing record. However, despite that, my playoff performance is terrible. I'm 6-5. And only gotten good recently because we went 3-0 in the last season to get the Super Bowl. We had a losing record beforehand. As not good playoff record, but hey, we got the Super Bowl. I'm happy, so hopefully we can continue this and do better the rest of the way. Alright, so number 5. The Bears on Retro Bowl. As this was the second franchise I did using the simulated method for Retro Bowl. I simulated games on pro difficulty because I wanted to see how it does more since I stopped doing the Giants franchise earlier. I did 5 franchises with the Bears. And the first year, the team actually, I don't remember how they did actually the first year. They had to have a losing season because the team was pretty terrible usually to start a year. But afterwards, we had a win season every single year. We won the division every year afterwards. And we went 17-0 in one year. We made the conference championship 2 times and we won it. And we won a Super Bowl. The one year we went 17-0, we actually didn't make the Super Bowl. We've lost in the playoffs. And then the other year we went 16-1, and we didn't win the Super Bowl. So yeah, that was unfortunate, and I wrapped it up soon afterwards. It was fun simulating that first franchise where I just sat back and watched the results. It was on normal difficulty too. So anyways, scored 20,550 points, just barely edging out the Steelers for now, until I get back to the Steelers franchise where I take over. But this is enough to get number 5 at the moment. It was a very good run testing out and all that for a potential series I'm going to do in the future. But then, number 4. The Texans on Retro Bowl. And by the way, this is actually number 5. I had to look at the list again. And the next one come up for some reason was deleted. So I had to re-upload number 4 on the list. So anyways, number 5 was the Texans on Retro Bowl. As this is the newest Retro Bowl franchise I did at the moment. Because I was bored with the upcoming franchise, which is in the top of this list. So I wanted to do a new one. And it's been not as successful as my other one coming up. But it's still going pretty good. I've had only 2 losing seasons. After 9 years in, I've had 7 win seasons, 6 playoff appearances, 5 division wins. I finally made got a home field advantage one year. I finally made to a Super Bowl, but unfortunately I lost to the Cowboys. So I'm missing out on a title at the moment. So compared to the other franchise right now, this one's kind of lacking as I'm not doing good in the playoffs. I'm doing good in the regular season, but not doing good in the playoffs as I scored 22,350 points at the moment. Alright, number 4. The Chiefs on Madden 24 for the PC. This was a franchise I did some time ago as well with Aaron and Gavin where we simulated a franchise together. As I was the Chiefs, Gavin was the Saints, and Aaron was the Commanders. The reason why I picked the Chiefs, which I know was really OP, was because my other options with the random teams were the Panthers and the Falcons. I didn't want to do the Falcons because I just had my other franchise, which is up next, which I'll talk about. And the problem is, either way, if I pick either the Panthers or Falcons, I'm going to be in the same division as Gavin, so that would be kind of awkward. And we would all be in the NFC, which would be kind of awkward. It's pretty difficult to do a franchise in 2 conferences with 3 people, I must say. So I kind of was forced to pick the Chiefs as the defending champ and all that. And the series was really weird. 5 seasons, and I alternated, like, one year I'll go like 10-7, like barely win a division. And then the other years, I'll go like 14-3 and all that and absolutely dominate. But then when we got to the playoffs, we actually watched the games as it happened. And oh boy, even though Mahomes and the offense like struggled, we still cooked in the playoffs. As the team went to 3 Super Bowls. And we won all 3 of them in defensive struggles. Oh my. Every year we made the playoffs, except in the 2 years we didn't make the Super Bowl. The first year we went 10-7, we lost to the Bills after beating the Jets in the wild card round. And then in year 3, I think it was, we went like 14-3 or whatever. We won number 1 seed. We beat whoever was in the division round. Then we hosted the Bills in the AFC Championship. And we choked it away. Then we pulled off the comeback to get the lead. The tie up to go to overtime. And then we choked it away as Mahomes threw a pick and allowed the Bills to win in overtime, which cost us the Super Bowl. But hey, that was the year Aaron won his only Super Bowl. So who knows? Maybe if we played us, he wouldn't have won. Just saying. So yeah, after that, Gavin rage quit because he kept struggling all the time. But I scored 27,050 points as I cooked. Completely cooked in the playoffs, as you can see. Other than one franchise coming up, this was the best playoff appearance, playoff record, with losses. 14-2, undefeated in the Super Bowl, the best record in the Super Bowl with 3 wins. But believe it or not, guys, this is not even the most wins in the Super Bowl in this franchise, or appearances. We still got more coming up in that regard. Oh boy, it's going to be wild. Alright, number 3. The Falcons on Madden 23 for the PC. This was the Falcons franchise I mentioned earlier. This is a franchise where I play the Falcons, I play the games, and I do All-Pro. It was the first franchise, besides the Vikings one I mentioned earlier, where I play on All-Pro. Because I wanted to try it out finally. And, oh boy, it's been a struggle. Well, it's weird in that regard. So anyways, I've done 4 years. The first year, we lost our first game against the Saints. And didn't look really good. Then we won 3 in a row, and like, okay, I'm still winning games. I'm not playing the best, but I'm still winning games. That's all that matters. And I got cooked by Brady and the Buccaneers to fall to 3-2. I think, okay, everyone in the division's pretty good at the moment. This could be a tough division. We'll see if I can survive. But that didn't matter. As the rest of the way, I went on to win every one of my remaining games except the final game of the year where I rested my stars and got cooked by the Buccaneers, is my quarterbacks threw like 8 picks. Even the backup threw like 5 picks. It was wild. But we went 14-3 and we got the number 1 seed with Desmond Ridder as my starter. So in the playoffs, we hosted Tom Brady in the Bucs, and it was a hard-fought game, but this time we beat him. We actually beat him in the game instead of losing them again. And in the conference championship, we hosted the Cowboys, and we beat them in a close game to somehow make the Super Bowl, where we played the Bills. And with like 5 minutes remaining in the game, we were down 19-15, and we started going downfield with like 3 minutes remaining. We were like in the red zone. We were trying to slowly go downfield to burn out enough time as possible but still get the game-winning touchdown. Desmond Ridder went for a QB run. He was getting towards the sidelines, but he was hit and he fumbled the ball. The Bills recovered it, and they went on to burn out the remaining time for them to win the game. We choked again as the Falcons in the Super Bowl. Ridder choked and blew me a Super Bowl doing that fumble. As, by the way, him and my running back Cordell Patterson, who really cooked in the regular season, they had a major fumbling problem that year. They could not stop fumbling the ball throughout the season. That was like the ultimate bad time to fumble. But yeah, after that, and of course, sometime later, Aaron did a franchise on 23 as the Falcons, or 24 as the Falcons, and Ridder was his quarterback. He needed a win to get into the playoffs for his one franchise, and Ridder also fumbled, cost him a playoff appearance. We made a nickname for him, Desmond Mitter, because he can't stop fumbling, and he cost me a Super Bowl because of it. So that really pissed me off. But he was still my quarterback, so going into the next year, he played better, although he still had his fumbling issues, and we went 15-2, and we got the number 1 seed once again. And I can't remember who we played in the playoffs, but we made it back to the Super Bowl where we played the Chargers, and we cooked them to win title number 1. But after that, I didn't want to have Desmond Mitter on my team anymore, so I traded him away to the Texans. I even got Darryl Stingley Jr. in the trade as well. I had the top pick, one of the top picks, and there was like 4 quarterbacks. One of them I really liked, but Aaron was like, he doesn't look that good. Go after this guy. And that was Adam Graves. I picked him up. And, oh my God, I picked up 3 running backs in the third draft. I picked up my last first round pick. I picked up a running back. Then I picked up a 4th round running back because he looked really good. And then I picked like a 6th or 7th round pick as my running back. I drafted 3 running backs. And I freaking signed, dang it, I can't remember his name, but he was the former Rams running back recently at the time to be my starter. However, he suffered an injury, so I couldn't start him. And my 4th string running back, Bobby Garnes, he played so good that I made him the starter over my 1st round running back. And he cooked. He had almost 2,000 yards rushing, and he broke the rushing touchdown record that LT had, but he was 1 touchdown short of tying his all-time touchdown record in the season. So Garnes cooked, and he was a superstar X Factor, making my 1st round pick irrelevant. Speaking of which, Adam Graves, he threw 36 touchdowns, but he threw 34 interceptions. There was one point in the middle of the year, a 5-week stretch where he threw 20 picks in 5 games because he couldn't stop turning it over. And unfortunately, that really hurt us as we lost to the Chargers. They were destroying us. Then we made a massive comeback, but we couldn't get the job done. We lost to the Broncos in an ugly game. We lost to the Panthers in an ugly game. No, I think we beat the Broncos. We lost to the Saints in an ugly game. And we barely pulled off a comeback against the Raiders to save our season. We were 6-0, and then we lost 6 in a row, and that win against the Raiders saved our season because we were barely in the playoffs at that point. And then we went on to win every game remaining to go 13, every game remaining except one to the Giants in the snow to finish 13-4, the weakest season at that point. But we still made the number 1 seed, and we had to host the Cowboys. No, we had to host the Buccaneers, and we beat them. And then we had to host the 49ers, and we beat them, despite the struggles we made back to the Super Bowl, where we had to play the Chargers for the 2nd time. And at first the Chargers played a good fight, but in the end, we cooked them as Graves had like his first like really dominant game, and he got MVP, I think, too, and he was well deserved. So then the next year, 2026, I think it was, no, 2025, we went undefeated. Yep, 17-0. Graves put up 41 touchdowns, but he had 26 picks as well still. He had a much better year. There was one game we were like 7-0 where we visited the 49ers on Sunday night. Late, with like 5 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter, we were down 27-10. Nothing was going right. And then we pulled the reverse 28-3, and we won the game 31-27 because we had like the elite defense of all time. I kid you not, in that 17-0 season, we had 4 defensive players with 19 sacks or better. Yes, you heard me. 4 defensive players had 19 sacks or better. That was insane. Thank you, defense, for saving us. But we went 17-0. We beat the Commanders in the divisional round. We beat the Eagles in the NFC Championship to make the Super Bowl for the fourth year in a row, where we played the Broncos. And we were having a dominant lead on the Broncos at one point, but then we started to pull a 28-3 where they were starting to pull up the comeback on us because we couldn't stop screwing up. But then we settled the ship, and we held on to win the game, to win Super Bowl number 3. I did the draft recently, but I haven't done the next season yet because I wanted to do this video. And this has been probably my most successful franchise where I've played the games. 4 years in, I've made the Super Bowl 4 times. Every year I've made the Super Bowl. Every year I've gotten the number 1 seed even. And I had to fight to win a lot of these games. Most of these games were close wins. And I've won the Super Bowl 3 straight times as I scored 29,000 points. And Bobby Garnes, my late 4th round pick, who's now Superstar X Factor, he might be a Hall of Famer right now. He's on track, but it's too early to say. And I don't know about Graves because he's thrown way too many picks. But yeah, that's number 3. But now we get to our final 2. And these 2 blow out everyone in terms of points because they're the only franchises I've played as an owner or a coach where I've played all 30 seasons. The only 2. So their score is going to be massively higher than everyone else. Alright, here we go. Number 2. The Colts on Retro Bowl. As this was the first Retro Bowl series I finished a full season with. Well, technically there's all the seasons are infinite, I think. I don't think there's a 30 season limit, but I decided to limit to 30 seasons in order to make Retro Bowl viable with this series. So anyways, this was the first franchise I simulated on hard difficulty. And on hard difficulty, they provide a challenge. You can have a 5-star offense and defense and still not necessarily do good. And I thought, after doing this with the Colts, this is actually a good setup to do for a YouTube series, and that's what I'm going to do. It was very fun, actually, in that regard. So yeah, I did 30 years, and I think I cooked. It took like the first 10 years before I really got anything going, as I had 3 straight losing seasons, start off with 4-13, 5-12, and then 8-9. And then I had a year where I went 9-8, 8-9, and 9-8. And then I went 10-7 to finally make the playoffs, but I lost that game. Then I went 9-8 again. So the first 10 years, I was being mid and all that. But afterwards, we did pretty good. As we scored 93,350 points, going 335, 175, 20-16 in the playoffs. And we made the Super Bowl 4 times. And we won 3 of them, tying the Falcons. And we went 17-0 in one of the near ends of the season. Unfortunately, though, we went 1 and done in the playoffs to the Dolphins. So yeah, despite 30 years, we had 26 win seasons. We made the playoffs 19 times. We only won the division 12 times, showing that we had to fight our way to get it and all that. But I made the conference championship 4 times, won them all, and I won 3 Super Bowls, lost 1 of them. And I had 12 Hall of Famers. Because remember, very biased, because the arcade stats really inflate players in a few short years. And I kept being balanced, realistic. I'd never increased my salary cap. I kept the exact default by the start of the year. And I had to keep releasing players eventually and such in order to rebuild, which made it more realistic, honestly, too, for real life. It was a very fun franchise. But it's not number 1. Their number 1 franchise in terms of success and legacy score. That number 1 franchise is the Raiders on Madden 2001 for the PS2. This was a franchise I did earlier this year, and I just finished it like a month ago, as I simulated the games and all that. As this was the first one I did full 30 years in, and it was a wild experience. So to put it simply as much as I possibly can, my Raiders had only 2 losing seasons, and that was 7-9. My worst record was 7-9, 2 times. That's a really good sign if you think about it. That's really good succession. And most of the years, I cooked. I was being very competitive for most of the years. I drafted, this was funny too, in the 2001 season, I actually drafted a quarterback to eventually replace Rich Gannon. Joey Waddle was his name, I think it was. And after a few games in, Rich Gannon was not playing good. So not only did I make Waddle the starter, I actually traded Gannon to a very needy Jaguars team because Mark Brunell suffered a season-ending injury. And we turned around, played a lot better, and we made the playoffs too. And funny enough, with Rich Gannon as a Jaguars quarterback, they turned around and went 12-4 and got the number 1 seed. I actually made the Jaguars dominant that year. But yeah, we kept on meddling along and all that, and finally in 2004, we made our first Super Bowl against the 49ers, and we beat them to get title number 1. Then a few years down the road in 2009, Joey Waddle started to play bad, and I wasn't happy about that. So I drafted his successor, Barry Davis, I think his name was, or something like that. And I eventually replaced him, and I traded Waddle to the 49ers because they were quarterback needy. Well, that turned out to be a fatal mistake, as for the next 10 years, Waddle became a Hall of Famer with the 49ers. And in 2011, we made it to the Super Bowl once again, where we faced Waddle and the 49ers. And this time, they cooked us. And then a few years later, they made the Super Bowl again, and they won it. I gave the 49ers 2 Super Bowls, one of them thanks off of my back from that one trade. Unbelievable. But we continued on. As Barry Davis, he played good for another few years or so before he started to play bad, and after that, until the end of the year, end of the last 8 years or so, I had to keep changing quarterbacks around because no one was doing good. I eventually traded Barry Davis away to the Lions, and he played another Hall of Fame career at the Lions, but didn't do as much as he did Waddle did. Oh my God, that was embarrassing. But we made another Super Bowl where we played the Redskins, and we lost. And then a few years later, we played the Redskins again in the Super Bowl with an undefeated record too, and we lost again. Then another year, we played the Cowboys, and we won, getting title number 2. And then a few years later, with, I can't remember who the quarterback's name was, but we made the playoffs in the Super Bowl again, playing the Cardinals, and we lost. And then another year, we made it to the Super Bowl again, where we played the Cowboys, I think it was, again. And we beat them. And then we played another year against the Giants, who looked vastly superior to us. I think it was the last year too. We had a horrible offense because my quarterback got injured and the quarterback play was doing terrible. So since this was my last ditch effort to win another Super Bowl, I focused on just running the ball, just run. And thankfully, we had the league's best defense, and we had one of the best rushing offense in the league, and that saved us from having a terrible passing offense. And we made it all the way to the Super Bowl, where we won it again to wrap up the year. I won the Super Bowl in 2004, 2024, 2028, and 2029 to wrap it up. And that is the greatest franchise I've ever had, as I scored 95,350 points. My Raiders went 303, 183, and 1. They went 30-17 in the playoffs, and they went to a record 8 Super Bowls and won a record 4 of them. It says 3 losing seasons, but I only remember 2 losing seasons, and all of them were 7-9. We had, just think about that, guys, 30 years. We had a winning percentage in 80% of the years. 80% of my seasons, I had a win season. I made the playoffs 20 times. That means 2/3 of my time I made the playoffs. I won the division 14 times. So I won the division almost half my times. I got home field advantage almost a third of the time. We had so many elite teams and all that. There were a few years where I was like mid and around like 10, 6, 9, 7, 8, and 8, but we still cooked. Won 8 conference championships, won the Super Bowl 4 times, and had 7 Hall of Famers, including my 2 quarterbacks I drafted, Joey Waddle and Barry Davis. There were other quarterbacks I drafted, but they were not that good. And, of course, I drafted elite players across the board, including, I'm going to bring this up, too, because I'm blowing up the thing right now in the background for my Raiders, because I wrote it down from every year and such. I drafted a linebacker named Ed Palmer. He played from 2002 to 2019. He played every year but his last year with my Raiders. He was one of the best linebackers I ever saw, and he almost never made the Pro Bowl. He would get like 10 plus sacks every year, but he would always get snuffed out. So bullshit. And then I had another, this one doesn't count because it wasn't a player I drafted. I had a cornerback named Brent Langley, who was originally drafted by the Saints in like 2013, I think it was. I actually traded for him for a steal, and the Saints made a fatal mistake. As in just like 3 years with the Saints or whatever, he already had like 30 picks. He would go on to have like over 70 picks with me on the Raiders. He would have over 100 interceptions in his career. Probably the best cornerback ever. Guys, tell me, have you ever seen a cornerback have 100 interceptions in their entire career? I've never seen that before. He might be the best cornerback ever in Madden, outside of maybe playing games and just force them because you're just that good playing as them. I've never seen that before. Sucks I never drafted him because he would have been a stud. But I drafted 7 Hall of Fame players, 2 of them quarterbacks, so I was very happy with my success and all that. And yeah, that is it. That is my most successful franchise ever. The Raiders on 2001. 95,350 points. Which, by the way, is only 2,000 points ahead of the Colts. If I won one more Super Bowl and one more game on that Colts franchise in Retro Bowl, the Colts would have been the #1 team. That's how close the margins were. Insane. And that is my Madden franchise history with the legacy scores. Those are my top 10 teams on the Flourish app, where I do like my progressive top 10s and all that. I might see if I could put the link somewhere in the description or the comment section so you can all see how it progresses every single year and all that. But yeah, this is how it is. And as I said, the Colts and Raiders are only at the top because they've had 30 whole seasons. The closest one on this list I'm still active is the Raiders franchise, where I've had 10 seasons for YouTube, and the Texans Retro Bowl franchise, which is 9 seasons, I think. So the only ones active on this list still are the Raiders YouTube series, Packers, Steelers, Texans, and Falcons. So once I start having more seasons that have been fully done 30 years, this list is probably going to be more balanced and all that. But right now the Colts and Raiders are just blowing out everyone because that's the only 2 I've done 30 seasons on. And then of course it'll become eventually not blowing out in terms of having played a full 30 seasons. It'll be coming up who will be good because I won so many Super Bowls with. So yeah, that is my top 10. I think the Raiders... No, actually the Colts on the Retro Bowl had the most wins, 335. The Raiders had the most playoff wins at 30 wins. But the Falcons right now... Well, actually, technically no, because I have a whole bunch of teams where I went undefeated in the playoffs. But in terms of playoffs appearances with losses, my Falcons on 23 is the best, 11-1. The Raiders have the most Super Bowl wins with 4, and they have the most Super Bowl appearances with 8 in total. And, of course, the Colts on Retro Bowl have the most Hall of Famers with 12. So, yeah. I cannot wait to do more of this stuff. And like I said, now that I'm finally done with this video, I can finally go back to doing Madden franchises again. I can get back to all the ones I could do. I could do the YouTube series for the Raiders again. And soon, guys, I will be doing that Retro Bowl franchise when this video's up. And I cannot wait to do that. Because that'll be a quick one, because I can get them done in a few minutes each. Alright, guys. So that's going to wrap it up here. Hope you enjoyed, and hopefully if the Flourish video works, you can see the top 10 list as it changes over time. So, see you all next time, and Madden on!